welcome everybody to the Work Hard, Play Hard podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Harding, and today I have Joseph Woodbury with me here today. He is the CEO of Neighbor, and which we're going to learn a little bit more about. What is Neighbor, and kind of helping us understand how it fits into real estate and why somebody would want to know about this. So let's kind of dive right in. Joseph, tell me what is Neighbor? What is this? What company is this?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Neighbor's a nationwide peer-to-peer self-storage marketplace. So we let people take empty space in their home or their business and rent it out for self-storage.
Okay.
So this could be in your home, like a shed or a garage or even a parking space.
Yeah.
And then we'll put your neighbor's boxes in your garage or their boat on your RV pad. We've got small businesses renting out space where they've got some space in the back they're not using.
Okay.
They monetize it. Maybe they've got some parking in the parking lot. We'll rent it out for vehicle storage. So that's generally how it works.
Okay. And so you're the CEO.
Yeah.
So this was your idea, or
Yep.
an idea with somebody else too? Tell me how it started, I guess.
Yeah, so there's three co-founders. It's actually my co-founder Preston who gets all the credit for coming up with the idea for Neighbor.
Nice.
He and his wife, they'd just gotten married.
Okay.
This was 5 or 6 years ago. And a week after they got married, they flew down to South America to work for this humanitarian org. So as you can imagine, like getting married, not even moving in an apartment, flying, you got to get storage for your items.
Yeah.
They were in a rush and just had a very poor experience trying to find storage. I think it's most people's experience. All the storage facilities close by were totally full.
Sure.
They were going to have to drive to the next city just to find one with vacancy. And they were going to charge them several $100s a month, which for them was way more than they paid for anything else.
Sure.
You pay $10 a month for your Netflix and $30 a month for your internet.
Yeah.
Storage is one of the most expensive subscription payments Americans are making.
Okay.
$300, $400, $500 a month, depending on your city.
Just for their stuff.
And so they found a friend that was willing to let them store in their garage. And 4 months later, when he got back and he was picking up his items, he just had the thought, this was such a better experience. I felt so much more peace of mind knowing my items were in a nice, clean garage in a neighborhood I trusted. Plus, I saved a ton of money. Well, there's got to be empty space in every neighborhood in the country. Why hasn't someone created a directory or a marketplace of some kind where I could look it up and book it?
Yeah.
So that's where the idea for Neighbor was born. I remember when he told me about it, my instant reaction was, this is amazing. Like, I thought all these ideas were taken.
Sure.
This is such a great idea. How has someone not done this before?
Yeah. Especially in an Airbnb, VRBO age, right? We got for
That's
houses
right.
and stuff like that, right? But
You've got Uber where you can rent
Yeah.
out you can drive people around. You've got Turo where you can rent out your car.
Yeah.
There's so many options, and yet no one's created a way to take the space that's sitting totally empty,
Yeah.
unused, and monetize that for passive income.
Love it. So if one wants to do this, how do they go about it? I mean, what's the process? I guess is it super complicated? I guess, or
Yeah. Well, we've tried to make it as easy as possible. First, by just making it easy to find us. We're neighbor.com. That's as simple as it gets.
Yeah.
We're also the #1 ranked self-storage app on the App Store. And if you're looking to monetize your space, you go on. We take you through this questionnaire that asks you all these questions about your space. It takes about 10 to 15 minutes to complete. We'll ID verify you as a host. Then your listing will actually get manually reviewed by a person. So you'll submit that, and 24 hours later, we'll let you know that if your listing's been approved or not to go live on our platform. And then from there, we get you renters. And those renters, you have the opportunity to approve or deny them. Once you approve them, they move in, and you basically do nothing. This isn't like Uber or Instacart or DoorDash where you're driving around doing work.
Yeah.
Or even like Airbnb where you may own an Airbnb, but they stayed for 2 days, and you have to clean up after them and find another tenant. This is someone moves their boat in on the side of your home, and they maybe come get it a few times during the summer, and the rest of the year you're getting a direct deposit into your bank account for doing literally no work.
So tell me about what about fears people like wrecking it or
Sure.
ruining stuff or what kind of assurances does somebody have that like, hey, I'm going to be okay, or there's somebody backing me up, I guess, kind of thing.
Yeah, a lot of people view us as a storage company, because we're the first self-storage provider to ever operate in all 50 states.
Okay.
But internally, we don't view ourselves as a storage provider. Our hosts are actually providing storage.
Okay.
They're selling storage. What we sell is trust.
Okay.
Our job as a marketplace is exactly that,
Okay.
to make it the safest experience possible. So for our hosts, we have $1 million guarantee for them, very similar to Airbnb. Our hosts are, of course, ID verified.
Yeah.
Our renters, we have the best property protection plans of any storage company in the country. That we're the only storage company I'm aware of that will give you up to $50,000 in protection for your items. And then just the general concept is safer as well. Storage facilities, most people don't know, they're all zoned industrial, and so they're generally on the outskirts of town. You don't see storage facilities like across the street.
Yeah.
And the break-in rate's very high. 1 in 10 storage facilities is broken into every year.
Wow. Didn't know that.
Whereas residential neighborhoods or business areas are much safer. If you look at the FBI statistics, something like 10 times safer than self-storage break-ins. Residential areas get 10 times fewer break-ins. So your items are in a safer place with better protection and closer to where you live to begin with. You don't have to drive across town.
Yeah.
And you're getting it for 30 to 50% cheaper than traditional self-storage. It's just kind of like a win-win-win for everyone.
Yeah.
Even for the host, they're making money for doing nothing.
For doing nothing, sure. What, so do you have like a review system then too and stuff
Yeah.
like that? Okay.
Yeah, we have a review system. We have a vetting system. Again, we take it a step further than most marketplaces do, in that you can't just automatically publish a listing on our site. You go to Airbnb, you can automatically publish a listing.
Yeah.
We have a human review every single listing, and we have listings in almost every city in every state in the country. We're in all 50 states and we're in almost every city, and yet we still manually review with a human every single listing that gets published on our site.
So obviously, going with you guys as opposed to doing things on their own, a lot of benefits there, I guess.
Yeah.
Just, I mean, safety for both the consumer and the host, like
Sure.
you said, right?
Yeah.
But then, I mean,
And that's our job.
sure, yeah. And that's what obviously makes it successful. So have you had anybody, any success stories from that? Like people that have, come in and kind of used your platform and really just like taken off and like, oh, hey, maybe I'd do a separate thing here and stuff? Or
It's blown away our expectations. We started mostly with homeowners,
okay.
and that was very exciting, and we blew that up nationwide. And the success stories there are kind of the heartwarming ones.
Sure.
We've got a middle school teacher in Draper, Utah,
Sure.
that's earning $10,000 a year on our platform. Think of what that is on a percentage of a middle school
Yeah.
teacher's income. She just had some, extra land by her house, as part of her lot, and she's renting that out for RV and boat storage, earning $10,000 a year.
Wow.
But then you step that up, we start allowing SMBs to list on the platform, small businesses, and we had a gym in LA that has kind of a large parking area and rents out some space inside his gym as well. He's earning $50,000 a year. Then, we've now started working with major investment groups. So we have $10 billion retail REITs and office REITs and multifamily owners, where we'll go to them and we'll say, okay, you've got properties in 30 cities. We know 10 to 20% of your portfolio is vacant. At a strip mall, you get all the spaces rented, but there's those 2 in the back that for 5 years you haven't been able to find a tenant on.
Yeah.
Give us all those spaces. We'll rent them out on our platform. We'll have them at 90% occupancy in short order, because there's lots of demand for storage. There may not be demand for retail in that space.
Yeah.
Office, of course, has been hit really hard in a lot of states, downtown New York, LA, San Francisco, where we'll go take a high-rise building, we'll convert the first floor or 2 into storage, and now that's it's occupied at 95%, generating solid cash flows, and on an investment portfolio, your IRR now looks amazing next to the next guy who's having to deal with market vacancies. You're both getting the same rents. You're not going to get higher rents. It's been fun to see even small investors, a guy that owns 5, 10 rental properties. Your cash flow is kind of set on that once you get tenants in all of them. You may be able to do some rent increases each year, but other than that, your cash on cash is set.
Sure.
But then they'll take those properties and they'll rent out one property, the RV pad at each location or the shed at each location. Maybe you were earning, mortgage was $2,000 and you're earning $2,300 in rent, so you're making net $300 on that property. And now on Neighbor, you're earning an additional $300, and that goes straight to bottom line. You just doubled your cash on cash on that property, and you did it on all 10 properties. All of a sudden, your portfolio looks amazing.
And that's really just for, you're talking just extra space. Like, so if I have a rental, you're talking like a spot like an RV space, or you're talking also inside the house? I mean, because obviously the renters.
Typically with rentals, it's going to be exterior.
Okay.
A homeowner might rent out space inside their home, but in a rental, you're typically talking a shed, some land next to it that's not getting used, an RV pad that's not getting used, and you just tell the tenant, like, hey, I'm going to be renting out this space. Speaking of investors, some investors have realized that this is a better investment. I'll just use Utah as an example. If you were to invest $500,000, that buys you about like a townhome in Utah.
Sure.
And you can rent that out for somewhere between $1,800 to $2,200 a month, probably.
Yeah.
Maybe $2,500.
Yeah.
If you're lucky. So that's going to yield you somewhere between $20,000 to $30,000 in annual rent.
Yeah.
If you instead use that property as short-term rental, like for Airbnb, maybe your rents increase from 20 to 30 to 30 to 40,000 a year.
Okay.
But if you instead took that same $500,000 and instead of buying a townhome, you bought a 1.5, 2 acre lot, you rent out that lot in Utah for $100,000 a year. That's 2.5x the rents that you're getting on a multifamily, and the yield is just so much better.
Sure.
So we've had some of these small investors just switch over to being basically neighbor investors, where they're just buying up property to rent out for vehicle storage on Neighbor.
Well, so then talk to me about that. So part of me says, okay, I mean, that's a great idea, right?
Yeah.
But what about like from a, in the neighborhood or something like that? I'm assuming there, are some local laws of, okay, hey, we don't want a trash heap here.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
a bunch of cars and stuff like that. How do you work with people as far as helping them understand local laws and different things like that?
So because we operate in, so many cities nationwide, we can't know every municipality is so different.
Sure.
Some municipality, it's like you can have 3 cars per person, per house, right?
Yeah.
Other municipalities, there's no rules whatsoever. So we always tell our hosts, check with your local municipality. A lot of times if you're buying like a large lot, you're not going to buy that in a residential neighborhood. You're going to buy that in a commercial area.
Okay.
Maybe undeveloped land that no one wants.
Sure.
We've all driven past those
Sure.
lots that no one can get a buyer on. You can scoop them up for very cheap, and perhaps even cheaper than a townhome, and yet you're yielding $100,000 a year on that.
So, got me thinking about different ideas and stuff like that. I guess. But so do you what's the minimum amount of space that you do? I mean, like what so if somebody's like, I mean, a shed. You mentioned a shed or something like that, or like I'd be thinking,
bedroom.
Can I really make money off that? Kind of thing.
So I'll give you some extreme examples.
Okay.
Most people are going to rent out at least a 5x5 or a 10x10 space.
Yeah.
But in New York, where space is at a premium, storage units go for $400 or $500 a month. We have this one, we have many hosts that'll rent out spaces as small as a closet, like a 3x3. At the very extreme example, we had a host that rented out space. They rented out a closet. They also rented out the space underneath their bed. And they had 4 or 5 spaces in their little flat rented out, and they're 100% occupied.
Wow.
Literally, that is how in-demand space is in New York City, that they're able to monetize that. So there's no limit on how small you can go.
Sure.
We wouldn't recommend that in most markets because no one's going to rent it.
Yeah.
And we provide a lot of tools to help you know what to rent in your market, how to price it, all of that stuff. so that you can be successful. Some of that stuff's only going to work in New York City.
Sure.
In other areas, you're going to want to rent out a full bedroom or a shed, a sizable shed, or half your garage. If you have a 2-car garage, dedicate half of it to a rental.
Okay. So in New York, what was the cost of that? To rent that?
Oh, I think they
remember?
they rented it out for $50 a month or something like that.
So so still making. And how would they access that then? So because obviously it's not like a storage place that you have 24 access because they're like, I'm sleeping right now.
Right.
Get out of my bedroom, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, how does that work then? For somebody.
So all hosts, when they sign up, we walk them through a flow where they indicate what access they would like to grant on the space. And so we have a bunch of different options you can choose from. If you're renting out your RV pad and you're saying, hey, come get your boat whenever you want, you can select 24/7 access.
Okay.
You can also select business hours only or after hours only if you want them to come after you're home from work. There's another option that's by appointment only, meaning you have to contact me 24 or 48 hours in advance, set up an appointment with me, and I'll let you into the space.
Okay.
We have everything from the example you mentioned to we have some renters that are storing 5,000 vehicles with us nationwide, big fleets.
Wow.
And so we have spaces that are very large that can accommodate that. They're going to have very different access opportunity than someone's closet.
Sure. Are you starting to see, so obviously this was built for individuals,
Yeah.
right? But are you starting to see where some big companies are like, hey, maybe we should start putting our I can't think of any offhand, but some big company that has a bunch of storage units, but they're like, hey, let's list it on Neighbor because might do that. I mean,
so most of our work, we do work with a lot of big companies. They're typically not storage companies. So we work with the largest owner of multifamily properties in the country.
Okay.
And for them, a lot of their multifamily properties, they built storage lockers in it for the tenants. They're like 25-30% occupied.
Yeah.
So we take all the remaining ones and rent them out to the community and get them to 95% occupied. We also take their excess parking outside that the city required them to build X number of parking stalls per unit, but they don't use them. So we take all the extra, rent it out for long-term vehicle storage. And again, it's a huge boost that across a big portfolio like that, you can earn millions of dollars in ancillary income, which really boosts your NOI. But we have had storage facilities listed on our platform. We don't prohibit it, but we don't actively seek them.
That's not really your main.
It's not really our main thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the thing I really like about, I think the day and age we live in with Airbnb and VRBO Neighbor, is it's a very better, efficient way to use things, right? I mean, you just mentioned like, hey, we have all this extra stuff, but that's why Neighbor's so nice, right? It's because again, we don't need to build more stuff. We just need to get access to more people so that they know, hey, there is space over here, and that they're not going to go and call that guy without you. I mean, they're not going to call, hey, do you have extra space? Or I see there's extra space. Can I use that?
Well, you mentioned the ability to get more efficient. The self-storage industry has the highest occupancy rate of any real estate asset class. It's sitting at 95% nationwide right now, and so they're supply constrained. Storage is supply constrained. Storage is trying to build as fast as it can just to keep up with demand. The industry spends about $4.5 to $5 billion a year just on new construction. Every year, we build $5 billion worth of new construction. And to us, that seems like, okay, we're building all this new space. Why don't we just take the space that's already sitting empty in all of our buildings all over the place? Crazy stat for you. We've now built more storage facilities than we have McDonald's, Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts, Burger King's, Wendy's, Domino's Pizzas, Walmart's, Home Depot's, and Costco's combined.
Wow.
And that's not even counting the little units inside of a storage facility. It's just there's 3 storage, even if you count the cities with 200 people in them, there's 3 storage facilities for every city in the United States.
I want to go back to, you mentioned, this is more of a real estate podcast, so you mentioned like commercials. Commercial obviously is starting to see some, it's not doing as well, right? Okay, we'll just say that. So
Distressed.
distressed, right? There you go. So somebody that's maybe owning a commercial property that's having these problems. I mean, obviously they can just you're like that. I want to go back to that example you gave of converting the first and second floor. What was, I mean, and I don't know if you know this, I guess, but the amount of cost to change it over to storage and stuff like that. Do you know, or
Yeah.
was it minimal cost because it was already kind of? Tell me about if I have a commercial property and I'm thinking, oh man, I'm trying to make ends meet because obviously my balloon payment's coming here soon and stuff like that. My mortgage is going to readjust. What options would I have there?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it. Term loans where that term's coming up, you're going to reset. You underwrote the property at a 4% interest rate, and all of a sudden you're going to be an 8.
Yeah, it's going to hurt.
You're underwater. You're going to have to walk away from the property and go bankrupt. Neighbor can really help those so you can maintain the cash flow you need to keep paying the bill on that property. We do understand the conversion costs very well because we'll do it.
Okay.
People will come to us and we will coach them through the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So we will lay out a site plan for them. We'll help them determine the unit mix that's appropriate for that location.
Yeah.
All the work that goes into that, and help them know exactly how they need to build it out. It's very cheap. This isn't like there's a lot of talk right now about office to resi conversions.
Yeah.
Which are never going to work. You look at the number of properties that it actually pencils. You got to take $100 million building and put another $150 million into it just to turn it into resi, because you got to redo all the plumbing, and the windows don't work for resi because they're all far away. You need windows and light in residential. And once you do the plumbing, now the structural's all damaged because you laid these concrete floor plates on a high-rise building. Resi's so expensive, hundreds of dollars a square foot to convert. Storage, you're typically looking at $15 to $20 a square foot is all to convert a space. And we don't even recommend converting all spaces. Some of these strip mall retail suites, we'll take them as is, and we won't put anything into them, and we'll just rent it out, especially if they're smaller, 2,500 square feet. We'll rent that out to someone who needs like business inventory storage.
Wow.
The residential side as well, like interest rates are high. Residential purchases slowing down. We've seen a lot of scenarios where brokers are using Neighbor to sell properties, where someone's looking at a $500,000 house and a $550,000 house, and they're kind of going back and forth, and do we spend the extra $50 grand?
Sure.
And the realtor goes to them and says, the $550,000 house is 200 square feet bigger, or its lot is larger. If you just rent out the excess space that property has, your mortgage will actually be cheaper on the $550,000 house than the $500,000 house. And so there's absolutely no reason you're getting a bigger house with more amenities, and you will pay less every month for the bigger house. Why wouldn't you go with the bigger house? Because you earn the extra $200-300 a month. That makes a big difference on a mortgage payment. That really slides it down to the lower valuation.
So, because they can see here, obviously in Utah, I mean, is there that much demand for rooms and garages and stuff like that? I mean, do you know?
We are absolutely supply constrained as a business.
Really?
The more supply that we can add, the faster our revenue can grow. We have millions of renters that come to our site every year that we're unable to service because we don't have the right kind of supply in their area for them. And that's with us having supply in almost every city in all 50 states. We still don't have enough.
So, yeah, okay. Well,
we'll get you rented if you listen.
I guess that's the point, is you would get us rented, right? Yeah. So, and really that's a great way to use real estate, like you said. I mean, especially right now with interest rates being high, it's another way to, hey, let's make this work. I mean, obviously as a lender, we can't use that as income, but you can, and as long as you qualify for the home on your own, you know that, hey, this is going to help make that payment a little bit more feasible for you.
And creative lenders are definitely opening up to the idea of using income like this, even on a loan. There are several lenders now that allow you to put Airbnb income on your loan and underwrite the loan based on that income. And Neighbor income's actually more stable, more predictable. It's not a very, this isn't like driving for Uber where you never know what you're going to make each month.
Sure.
Once you get rented, you're going to make, $300 a month, $500 a month, $1,000 a month, depending on how much property you're renting out. Every single month. That's the beauty of storage. It's recurring, and durations last forever. That storage facilities, that's what they live off of, is renters come in and then they never leave.
Well, let's switch gears a little bit. Obviously, you're a Utah company.
Yeah.
Headquarters are here.
Right in Lehigh.
Right in Lehigh.
Yep.
Okay. So, you started back in when? When did you start?
2017.
2017. So we're now 6 years later.
Yeah.
What? Tell us, give us the success story as far as, obviously Neighbor's doing well.
Yeah.
How well? Give me some numbers, I guess, as far as just, how.
Yeah.
I mean, we love seeing, success stories like that, right?
Yeah.
It's like home, we want you to succeed. So tell us about that.
Yeah. Oh, I mentioned the geographic footprint.
Yeah.
We're the only self-storage operator in the country offering storage in all 50 states. So we've grown quite a bit geographically. Just the space that we've been able to onboard to our platform would cost a traditional self-storage facility somewhere around $7 to $8 billion to build. And of course, we didn't have to pay $7 or $8 billion.
Yeah.
We just had to pay for the advertising to let people know about this idea. And they already had the space. They already bought it. They paid for it. It's paid for. They're just taking that space and onboarding it on our platform. So yeah, it's grown quite large. We're servicing a lot of renters. I mean, you hear stories. I mentioned these big real estate portfolios that can earn millions of dollars a year. But just as important are the individuals who they onboard to Neighbor, and they'll write in and they'll say, I created a bank account that I call Vacation, and the only thing that puts into it is my Neighbor income. And when it hits $2,000, we go on a vacation, wipe it down to zero, and Neighbor refills it for me.
I like it.
We had another couple, that the dad wrote us in and he said we wanted to send our daughter to this preschool, and we were doing our budgeting and it was going to be $300 a month, and we just finally decided we don't have the money. We don't have $300 a month, and we weren't going to send them. And the next day I saw this Facebook ad for Neighbor. I checked it out, listed some space. 2 days later I got a renter. I was earning $300 a month, and Neighbor pays for my daughter's preschool every month. So it's really impactful. Despite how big it is in the scale, that's the reason we ultimately do it, is it's life-changing income for a lot of people.
Sure. How many employees do you have?
We're about 100 employees.
About 100 employees.
Yep.
And back in 2017, how many employees did you have then?
Three.
Three. Okay.
Three co-founders.
Three co-founders. There we go.
Yeah.
So you've grown. So and as far as average income for these employees and stuff like that.
In 2020, at the beginning of 2020, we had 10 employees.
Okay.
Including the three co-founders.
Okay.
So even since then.
So really the last 3 years.
Yeah.
Has been
And the nice thing is it's because we aren't building the storage. It's a very scalable product. This isn't like a real estate portfolio where you got to have a manager at each site, and the more property you gain, the more you have to hire.
Yeah.
We're able to just scale and scale and scale this. Most of our employees are software engineers. They're just building product.
Sure.
And at some point, the product gets to the point where it can handle as many users as you want to add to it.
Yeah.
Now, of course, as we go to expand internationally, we'll have to add all sorts of compliance and things to be able to think about different countries differently.
Sure.
We're not to that stage yet. We're still 100% based in the United States. But yeah, it's a nice kind of tight-knit team. We're all fully in office.
Good.
We all have a ton of fun.
Sure.
Coming to work each day and watching how we can grow this thing.
Any, you mentioned internationally and stuff like that. As far as the future, any things you see? I don't know if storage changes, but anything you see changing, I guess, in your industry? Any projects or things like that in the future?
Definitely. As far as the industry, I don't see much changing other than it continuing to grow.
Sure.
It's huge. Do you know what the largest company in the state of Utah is?
I would assume Intermountain Healthcare.
It's a great guess. A lot of times we'll get Qualtrics or doTERRA as guesses. It's a company called Extra Space Storage, based out of Cottonwood Heights, Utah. $30 billion publicly traded company, and they have 3% market share. Is all. There's the largest company in the country is largest storage company is a company called Public Storage, $55 billion company that has 6.5% market share. Is all. So this is an industry that does 10 times the amount of revenue on an annual basis as the entire taxi and limo industry that Uber and Lyft disrupted. It's gigantic, and it just doesn't stop growing. In 2008, when it's so counter-cyclical, like it doesn't go down in bad times like other industries. In 2008, when all of real estate contracted by anywhere from 65 to 80%, storage grew as a category by 5%. It's just steady, boring growth. That's what we love about it. It's huge, it's archaic, it's super old school, it sucks, it's super expensive, it's super far away, half of them don't even have security cameras, your stuff gets broken into, and when your stuff gets stolen at a storage facility, they don't offer insurance, so you're on the hook for all your items. If the whole place burns down, you have to replace your items, not the storage facility.
That's different than with you guys.
Yeah.
You're insured. You're good.
Yeah, we offer property protection plans that you can choose for your items. And what storage facilities will do is they get you in at a price, first month free, and then it's cheap, and then 4 months later, the price goes up. And then 6 months after that, your price goes up. 2 years into it, you're paying double what you're paying, but they know that it's so hard to move your items out that you'll never come get your items, so every 6 months they increase your prices. Sure. A neighbor, when you move in, that's your price. And you'll pay that price for 12 months, or 24 months, or 36 months. You're locked in at that price. But as far as our company, absolutely, I see changes happening. Fundamentally, of course we want to take it internationally as storage, but we called this company Neighbor for a reason. And that's because we view our most valuable asset not as being a storage company, but we have users in almost every neighborhood in the country that are opening up their space to their neighbors. And if they're willing to open up space in their home for storage to their neighbors, what else are they willing to do for their neighbors? And so storage for us is kind of like books was for Amazon. It's where we're starting. And it's a huge category, just like books, where you can be very successful. But it's certainly not the end game for us. It will be one of the things that we offer, but we're building a platform that allows neighbors to offer goods and services to each other. The first one being storage. And we're going to branch out to all sorts of other things. Maybe you've got a tennis court or a pickleball court, and you want to be able to share that with your neighbors and rent that out to your neighbors so that they can come access it whenever they want to.
Sure.
Maybe you have a movie theater that you want to share with your neighbors. Maybe you own a boat, and the only reason you don't let your neighbors take it out is because you're worried about the liability.
Sure. That's
where marketplaces come in, where you can solve the liability. That's what a marketplace does, is it solves the trust and makes the transaction easy. And then you'd be totally comfortable renting out your boat because you know it's covered if something happens. And so we want to bring back this era where we used to have more kind of nuclear communities. I think today, if people are really honest, they don't know any of their neighbors. They maybe don't know one or two, but they'll literally travel outside of their neighborhood to go visit their friends. And in their neighborhood, it's just kind of awkward. You never create those. You have someone that lives 3 doors down. You don't know them at all.
Sure.
And we want to change that.
Well, hey, you're selling me on this. I have several rental properties myself. Airbnbs too. It's been good investments for me and stuff like that. And I can see where, I probably actually can get a little bit more extra income from some of these and stuff like that. So,
especially Airbnbs. We have a lot of Airbnb hosts where you really don't use all the space of the property. You really rent an Airbnb for the living quarters.
Yeah.
So you're renting the kitchen and the bedrooms and the bathroom.
Yeah.
But there's many parts of an Airbnb, even more than a rental property, that don't get used. Oftentimes the garage doesn't even get used.
Sure.
And so we'll have Airbnb investors that realize, oh my gosh, across my 10 Airbnbs, I can really increase the cash flow by neighboring out the spaces or the areas that my Airbnb tenants are never going to go anyway.
And so really, if somebody was thinking about that, just going to your website to try to kind of research some of this, you'd have some of these ideas then, I guess,
Sure.
right? You know, because it's like, well, I didn't think about this space or that space. And so you have kind of ideas for them and stuff like that as far as...
Well, most people have no idea. The way our platform works is you're allowed to set whatever price you want.
Okay.
You think you can earn $2,000 a month renting out that space? Be our guest.
Sure.
We'll list it. We'll try to get you a renter. But most people, what they'd rather do is have us tell them, and we have a ton of data. We have more data than any storage company in the country because we watch all these variable prices. We watch someone rent one space out for $50 a month and someone else try to rent the exact same space out for $2,000 a month.
Sure.
And we watch what gets rented. And so when you come on our platform, when you fill out all these details, where the space is, what type of space, is it a garage or a bedroom, or a small business parking lot, those are going to be very different. And it's going to be very different if it's in Utah versus New York City. We'll take all those variables and we'll spit you out a price. And we say, you're 90% more likely to be reserved if you use our price. Further, users can actually sign up for something called smart pricing, where the user doesn't even set the price, and they'll give us like a minimum price that they don't want to go below, and then we'll set the price just to maximize your earnings, and we can change it seasonally, and we're always just listing your space at the highest price that we think you can list it and get reserved, and so that you don't even have to think about that. So that's how we help and kind of guide users. We have calculators that you can use to estimate your earnings on a space. We even have pretty robust for larger spaces, especially like parking lots, where we'll pull in like a satellite view of that, and we'll actually help you lay it out and lay out the stalls. And do you want RVs over here and cars here and boats here? You can lay that all out, and it'll, up in the top left, it'll give you a dollar amount expected earnings on that space as you're blueprinting out your space. We've built some really robust tools that people can use to really plan almost a business around this, just to make it as easy as possible for the user.
Well, yeah. I'm gonna have to go on there.
Yeah.
Do a little research myself and kind of
Give it a try.
And see what I can, rent out and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
Love it. Did anything we didn't cover that you wanted to cover, I guess, before we conclude here? Anything?
We talked about how this is bringing neighbors together.
Yeah.
We've had people on our platform, they've said, 3 doors down, I maybe said hi twice to that neighbor. I got on, I was gonna store some items, and I was like, holy cow, this neighbor is listed on this platform. I booked their space because it was convenient. I drove my items 3 doors down. They came out to help me move items into the garage because they wanted to be helpful. Of course, we've got to talk about something while we're doing that.
Yeah.
We realize we have a ton in common, and now we go to lunch every Thursday.
You're making friends too now.
We're making friends.
You're helping neighbors come together.
We've even had people start dating because
Really?
they met on our platform, which
wow.
of course is not the intended use case, but it just goes to show
Sure.
that there's relationships that are missing.
Yeah.
That if we just had some sort of way to kind of break the ice, we would do a much better job of getting to know our neighbors, taking care of those neighbors. And I think, we talk a lot about our problems in society. A lot of them come down to if every neighbor just took care of their immediate neighbor, we would have no more problems because everyone would be taken care of.
Sure. Yeah. So you're gonna, I like it. I like I can see the benefit there of neighbors coming together and making the world, better in that regard.
More Mr. Rogers.
More Mr. Rogers. That's right. We need more of those in this world. So I like that. Well, thank you. You've given people a lot of things to think about as far as, especially with real estate, and especially, how they can use those properties to kind of better make some money,
Sure.
a little extra money on the side. I like I said, you got me pondering on things, and I want to go on there myself and start to look at it. So, thanks, Joseph. Appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me.
And I'm excited for people. I hope this is a real benefit to them. I think it will be. So, and I wish you guys luck. I hope you continue to do well. I think you have a lot of potential actually. So, which is cool. And you're just down the street from us. So, okay. Thanks, Joseph, and thanks everybody else for listening. Like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week.